Rusty. I gotta tell you something.
Oh, it's adventure time. You know.
I gotta tell you something serious.
Okay.
I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared over here.
Hold on. Let me gather myself. Okay, I'm ready. What's up?
I think my Goo Goo Mama meter is just going off. It's just going babies right now.
It's going babies?
It's just freaking going babies right now.
Man, I mean, that's what happens when you get to be our age, right? You start to see babies everywhere, and gosh, I just feel it in your gut.
Feel it down in my plums,
Time to have a baby.
Feel it in my plums. I gotta have that Goo Goo Mama meter going off.
Sorry, Mama, it's time to have a baby. Anyways,
where's the Michael clip of him going, "I want to have your babies.
I want to have your baby."
Oh man, well, we are doing an Adventure Time podcast, not just being creepy, weird guys. And we're doing season 5, episode 29, Sky Witch. The
Sky Witch.
Official. Technically, we've heard of her before, but official introduction to Maja, the Sky Witch.
I don't remember hearing of her. Her house is that the only reason why she's called the Sky Witch? Because her house is technically in the sky?
Yeah, I think so. I don't really think we get a necessary explanation as to why she's a Sky Witch, except for it's this cool, like, alter dimension sky house thing.
Which is very cool. You do see Princess Bubblegum have to go through, like, a pond, and she uses her in this episode, she just has the most intensely expert observation skills in every given scenario. And she goes, "That's a portal," and swims into it and then flies out of it and almost goes just straight off into the sky. And I assume dies at that point, unless she has something incredible in her backpack that I don't think she ever ends up using anything in her backpack that she's lunging around throughout this episode.
I don't think it's a necessarily death thing per se. I don't know. I feel like there's like magic like that where it's like it's not visible until you enter the portal, and then it's like reversed gravity, but I don't think it's like a separate universe that has infinite. It was
fascinating. It was cool.
Reverse gravity or anything.
This episode is fun, man. I mean, this is like one of those few episodes where Finn and Jake don't actually have any dialogue. They are there at the beginning of the episode and say absolutely nothing, which I'm kind of here for it. I think the more I get these episodes, the more I'm like, it's a good break. It's not an episode for me where it feels like it's going nowhere. And really what's great about this, and I know we always talk about how I like when the story's progressing. I think even more so than that, I love the character development and character exploration that occurs in this episode. And I think I need, for like a good Adventure Time episode for me, other than the occasional amazing Treehouse episode, as you say, like getting that character development and exploration really carries this episode for me.
Yeah. Well, this is almost like a dungeon crawler episode. It's just a dungeon crawler with Marcy and PB instead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. And it mimics, to me, this whole episode mimics the dungeon episode, like our original dungeon episode where Finn and Jake split off and they can't complete the task without each other. And we kind of see this dynamic between Marcy and PB in this episode where
they complement each other,
play off each other, complement each other, but also we have enough like juxtaposition with the two characters to where you kind of see, well, you have it. You watched Fiona and Cake, so you have it all spoiled for you of this developing complex potential relationship going on.
No way. Whatever relationship, dude? What? I would have never expected that. No, I agree. And funny enough, Marceline is kind of the Jake. She's the muscle. She's the one who holds
the muscle,
the crab at the end.
Beating up the crabbit, kind of going off on the what do you call it? Impulse, or, just completely flying by the seat of her pants. And
for sure.
Just kind of like the other dungeon episode, Finn's calculated, and he has to be calculated in order to do that. And that's where they complement each other. And I don't know, man, like from you watching this show for the first time and from having it spoiled, knowing that they're going to be together at some point, and you don't know the history of it all, but this is probably the first introduction to their history to some degree that you've seen. And what are your initial
to this
gut
specific,
reactions?
Right?
Yeah, to this specific episode.
I mean, like what we've seen, what we've seen in the past are just, they were friends or something, or they had a falling out. Like we don't really know that, it was like a relationship. But this episode, if you weren't aware at this point, like this episode gives it away. I mean, she's got a picture of Marceline.
So you think this one really gives it away?
I think so, dude. I mean, there's a photo of Princess Bubblegum and Marceline in Princess Bubblegum's closet. There's like the T-shirt sniffing at the beginning of the episode. Not one of my homies, one of my boys, am I taking a T-shirt that they gave me in the past and just sniffing the heck out of it?
It'd be a little creepy.
Bachelor party I went to where I
clothes.
Well, that's true. I mean, yeah, I guess that. I didn't think about that one. No, I mean, that would just be over the top. I don't know. There's just obviously a dynamic there. And we knew in the past that there was something between them. We just didn't know what. But this episode, and maybe, again, it's been spoiled for me. I don't know how you could go into Adventure Time at this point and
not really know.
And not kind of be aware of they had a relationship. I mean, it's everywhere on social media. So it's not even that Fiona and Cake spoiled that for me. I knew that going into the first time we saw them together. But this episode does feel a little bit like, obviously there's something there.
Yeah.
And there's some genuine like wanting to hang out. Yeah, I agree. And it's so fun to see, like, gosh, I believe it was Marceline who is trying to get her to go for the search and try and find Maja and stuff. And she just says like, I thought it would be cool to spend some quality time with you. Like that is her reasoning initially. And then also, and I couldn't keep tracking down Maja. She went to an enchanted forest. There's a barrier spell there or something. I can't get into it. But I love that we do get to see those little bits and pieces of like, they both have feelings for each other to some degree. They're both making an effort, even though it does feel like in this episode, I mean, the one taking the big step forward is pretty obviously Marceline at the beginning of the episode. And Princess Bubblegum makes her own step forward in her own way toward the end of the episode. But it does center around sentimental items. Like this whole episode kind of, I mean, it's the catalyst of what's going to be my theoretically speaking, and so much more that we'll get into as this episode goes on. We're not going to do it right now. But I want to let's talk about some sentimental things for me and you so that we can get into the sentimental mood a little bit. And then we'll come back around to it at the very end. Ned, are you a very sentimental man?
I don't think so. I like not as much. And maybe it makes me sound like weirdly cold and like, I don't know, stone cold. I don't know if I have a lot of sentimental things.
Really?
I do have like keepsakes, so I get that kind of mentality of like keepsakes. And so, there's things that are important in that, like, my wedding rings are like very important to me. Too.
Right. Of course.
Like, as I'm not wearing it because I took a shower yesterday. But
I don't know if that counts as a sentimental item though. A wedding ring.
It will when I'm an old man. Like it will when I've been married for 40 years or whatever.
If you have the same wedding ring and don't lose it at any point.
That actually is my goal. I don't want to do the whole switch out, change wedding ring every 10 years. I want to try to.
Is that a thing that people do?
Yeah, they switch them out every like 5 or 10 years, like kind of thing.
Man, ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Like, But childhood things. I mean, as I'm sitting here, I'd say like even within arm's reach, I got my lime green Game Boy Color, which
that's nostalgia right there.
It still turns on, and so I'm trying to breach though. There's the nostalgia and your past versus like sentimental. Right. Like if that got burned in a fire, I'd be like, that sucks. I had nostalgia behind that.
No, I do think there's some sentimentality to like Game Boys and stuff, but those are almost different than what happens in this episode because what's going on in this episode is it's an item that somebody gave you or an item that you got in a certain situation that helps you get through another thing. And so for me, I mean, I don't think it's going to be any shot to anybody who listens to this podcast that I, Russell, DJ Russ T, am quite the sentimental man. And I think
are you behind items or like time spent? Because that's the thing. Like,
of course,
I'm very much like a time spent.
Trumps, time spent trumps items. I'm not a gift giver. I'm not a gift receiver. I actually am really bad at receiving gifts. Mm-hmm. But what I will do is sacrifice my time for somebody, right? But sentimental items, I love a good sentimental moment. I love a good speech at a wedding. I love a good, any sort of a moment like that where you have just a special like one-on-one situation, like me and you, when you were leaving Nashville and we had a nice little moment at whatever that bar is over in the Nations.
Like Centennial Bar, yeah.
Centennial, yeah. Like that was a sweet moment that like I'll remember, for our entire friendship until I hate you, and then I'll force myself to forget it. But
but like it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for the right episode of this podcast to reveal episode 200.
Episode 200 when Jake and Finn get in a fight, and then Russell's just like, I hate you so much.
Yeah, I hate him. But no, so like within arm's reach of me is like a University of Georgia football painting that my dad made for my childhood bedroom at his house that I would go over to every other weekend. And like to make it more fun, he made my entire bedroom UGA red and black colors and white. And so he painted a little like hand-drawn football players and a guy with a trumpet and stuff. And then I have like my grandfather's green pullover, which I think I've talked about, which I got after he passed away on this podcast. I've talked about it before. And then Allie gave me a lucky twig, which is really silly. I don't even know if this counts.
That's the sin. It's
I don't know if this counts. It's a twig.
What does Maja say? It's full of the juices of sentiment, like
right. But it's a twig that's in my Subaru, and I plan to keep it there for as long as I can. That on one of our first dates, Allie picked up and was like, here's a twig. It's your lucky twig or something as a joke. And I was like, all right. And then I just kept it in my car ever since. But the real kicker, I think this is where we can transition back to the episode, was this gray stuffed bunny. I had there were a handful of stuffed animals that I really loved when I was a kid. And me and my mom were clearing out my childhood bedroom. And we come across this gray stuffed bunny. And I'm like looking at books on the shelf or something. And my mom goes, Bunny! And I'm like, what the heck? And I turn around and out of nowhere, my mom's entire face is super red, like cherry red. Like she's just crying like crazy.
Oh, no.
And I take out my phone. I wish I had the bunny on the recording. I have a recording of like the aftermath of that, which is just me like laughing into tears as well. And her holding up this bunny and giving it a hug. And I'm just like, what is happening?
You barely remember it probably.
Right. But it's such a, I think sentimental things are great. And we'll talk a little bit about because eventually and sometimes you got to get rid of those sentimental things or you lose it or whatever. But there's a letting go that needs to occur. But before we get into that, let's hop into this episode, man. Let's talk about what I believe is a really good Adventure Time episode.
Later. It's great. No, again, I told you we've crossed the peak of season 5, and it's kind of just like we're going to get really good content from here on out. I love this kind of cold open. We get the open of Princess Bubblegum sleeping in a nightshirt, which we haven't really seen her in necessarily this casual of clothing, which is kind of a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. A cuckoo clock with a fake candy cat in it.
Oh, it's awesome. And I love it. It just pops out and just like kind of taps her on the face and meows. I'm like, that's way better than the Hatch like sunrise alarm clock that I have. You don't have to take care of that thing. I've got a dog that does that, and I have to freaking feed it and take it out. But
if is the clock sentient? Has she created a candy
no, there's no
cat
way.
That's inside this clock whose sole purpose is to wake her up? And is it living in a perpetual misery?
Oh no, I sure hope not. A real cuckoo clock situation.
We have to ask these questions on this podcast because it is what we talk about in terms of getting deep into Adventure Time and in Princess Bubblegum lore of how twisted she may be.
Things. If we don't ask, who's going to ask?
Who is going to ask this question? Is she created a slave kitten, cotton candy kitten that lives inside this clock?
How dumb.
But she, I love our reappearance, our cameo of Science the rat, which is great.
Oh,
who's living in her closet, which is, could be the lovely of the episode. Not going to be my lovely of the episode.
Okay. That's fair. Not my lovely.
I think Science got our lovely when we actually had that episode, though.
Yeah, but he deserved it at that point, right? Like he was great. No, and so she's Princess Bubblegum, of course, is in the rock shirt from season 3, episode 10. What was missing? which immediately I lit up when I saw this. I was just like, oh my gosh,
everything's coming full circle, man. I love it.
Well, you just know, like, that is like good episode. Like I knew from the beginning, I was like, oh, I'm in for it. Like, this is.
If I had to wager a guess of your favorite episode so far, it might be What Was Missing.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. That's probably the case for most people, right? Unless there's something else that's coming. I know there's one at the end of this, one at the end of the series that people really love. Come Along With Me, I think it's called. And then
that's the season finale, series finale. Yeah.
What's the one with Marceline and Ice King and they're singing in the kitchen and stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I can't remember the name of the episode, but
Remember You. Me. Yeah. I mean, those are like my top episodes for sure, but I'm just excited for this one. This might be my top for season 5 so far. I mean, we'll see as we keep going. I'm gonna have to look back. Season 5 is so long. There are so many damn episodes in the season. We're
barely halfway through at this point.
Yeah,
like we're a little over halfway through. Excuse me, a little over halfway through at this point. And so we got a lot to. Man. We have a lot to go going into this episode again before we tangent too much because we don't tangent on this podcast.
Yeah.
I like how PB's got this collective group, and she's like, "You guys are the best of our Candy Kingdom." And she's going through a training exercise. She's doing the what is it? Take a little bit of poison so you can become immune to the poison exercise.
Exactly.
It's Finn, Jake, Pet Butt, Cinnamon Bun, the Banana Guards, Manfred, and I think that's it. I think that's
Manfred the best. Who's Manfred?
Manfred's the pinata. Yeah.
Did the pinata fall asleep? Because I noticed the pinata was there, but I couldn't tell.
He was asleep. I did double check. He had fallen asleep. So Cinnamon Bun is the only one that withstood the sleep powder.
I'm going to give Cinnamon Bun my lovely just for withstanding the sleep powder.
Give me some sugar, baby.
I mean, I don't know if he really deserves it, but I was like, this is such a silly scene.
This is a great one.
Princess Bubblegum's being a real goof here. And of course, Finn and Jake aren't saying a word. Why is Finn not still awake? If anyone could be awake, you'd think it would be this guy. He's just got willpower for days, but for whatever reason, he can't stay awake.
He had the power against mind control in a different episode. And so why does he not have the power against sleep? But he's a teenager, dude. Teenagers love sleep. So of anybody there, dogs love sleep. Teenagers love sleep. Bananas love sleep. I don't know.
Bananas love sleep.
But they were the two most susceptible to take a nap. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Bubblegum's screaming, as this is happening, as she is showing them how to stay awake, which I do think it was a little trial by error. Like, we're just going straight into this and I'm going to explain it to you as it's happening as opposed to beforehand. But she screams, do not go on gentle into that good night, which is a reference to Dylan Thomas's poem of the same name, but without the on. I'm pretty sure it's just do not go gentle into that good night from 1951, which fun fact for the podcast. I actually wrote an essay on that poem.
Shoot. Okay. So you were like, I know I had heard it from Interstellar, which is, again, fantastic movie.
Oh, that's right.
It's not my recommendation, but that's one of the staple points of the Interstellar movie was don't go gentle into that good night, which is, again, just Christopher Nolan, probably best movie, even over Dark Knight, probably best movie. But
really,
it's cool that you dove deeper. Podcast.
Different, yeah. I'm feeling like that's a controversial statement that you just said, and I almost want to dive into it.
Never Ending Adventure Beyond for the Patreon followers, so we can talk about Christopher Nolan movies. But
yeah, that sounds cool.
But it's cool. You did an essay on that in high school.
Yeah, I did a short essay on it. I mean, it's it was supposed to be a persuasive essay, and I think I did a pretty decent job. But it was a poem that just really spoke to me. I mean, as a man with existential dread. I, even back in college, was like, yes, this is the one I'm talking about. And maybe because it was short, that might be the real reason why I chose it. But,
maybe.
It's a good poem. Regardless, she's prepping for something, man. Something's coming to the Candy Kingdom. Recent data shows, according to Princess Bubblegum, that there's an increased chance of threat to the Candy Kingdom. And that's why she puts the sleep powder gas inside the Gumball Guardians, which does, I don't know. I'm super curious about what it is that we're waiting for, and I don't want you to spoil anything if there is something coming. But just what are they What are they tracking? I got some theories, and we'll get into that in a minute. I don't want to get into it just yet, but
I do want to hear your theories, because that is kind of an interesting part about season 5. We're getting more into this character development. We are doing a lot less with like Lich and universe and megalocalypse like type stuff. That what is like we've already gone past like Susan Strong. She could be a threat to the Candy Kingdom. We've already gotten past Flame Princess is out in the world. She could be a threat to the Candy Kingdom. We've already gotten past Ice King becoming Simon, and he's kind of a chill dude now. Like, he's not really a threat. So like, why is this increased threat coming to the Candy Kingdom? I don't know. I honestly don't think I could answer you that, except for at the end of this episode, Maja alludes to her having a bigger plan. Obviously.
Well, let's do my theoretically speaking then, real fast, and I'll just get it out of the way.
Theoretically speaking,
because we're talking about it so much, we might as well just say my theory. And y'all have seen this episode. If you haven't, please go watch this episode. It's so good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens at the end of this episode already. But Princess Bubblegum, I think giving the band shirt to Maja will be like the catalyst that leads to the downfall of the Candy Kingdom as we know it, like the Candy Kingdom itself. At the beginning of this episode, of course, as we just mentioned, like Princess Bubblegum's talking about the recent data shows that there's an increased chance or an increased threat to the Candy Kingdom. What is that? I think that was actually a prediction of events that will occur that were triggered by the events of this episode itself. I don't have a lot of personal, as this is my first time watching this show through, I don't have a lot of evidence for this. I think Shoko, to me, the painting ghost, which does appear in this episode, feels like a bad omen. I don't know if it's a bad omen, but it sure feels like a bad omen. And also Maja, as you mentioned, at the end of this episode does say she's cooking up something big and takes a bit of a victory lap, just shocking a very, I'll say, sexy, familiar Kravitz.
Yes, I'm about to say.
Not a furry. I'm not a furry. I'm just saying.
He's not a furry.
I'm just saying. I also, we did my theoretically speaking. We might as well get into my sexy character of the episode.
Hey, my sexy and my lovely. So we'll just go ahead and throw that out
there. Give
me
some sugar, baby.
Yeah, sexy and lovely of the episode is the Kravitz. Cannot be. Want to have the baby? I don't have the babies on the soundbite yet.
We need to get that soundbite. It's so good.
I'll put it back in soon, but.
Dude,
it's a combo. It's
abs, bro. When he's like dead after Marceline just whooped his butt and he's lying on the ground and he's just got bruises and scrapes and all this stuff, you could see his abs. And then that beak, like what that beak do, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, and now you're going a little bit down a path I wouldn't have gone down. So,
and that butt, dude, like he's got the body of the Point Place, West Virginia's Mothman statue, but like for Adventure Time, like that butt.
That boy.
I'm just messing. No, he's a dancer, and I think that rocks. And
I was about to say he got my lovely of the episode. He got my sexy the sexy episode of the. I can't.
You can't even say it. You're just
character of the episode.
He's just in your mind, man. You're just thinking about him. I get it.
But he got my lovely truly when he was like, Maja, I'm done being your familiar. Which in witchcraft culture and all this stuff. I don't think a familiar can abandon their master per se. And he's just like, I'm friggin' done. I want to be a dancer. I want to give you one spoiler drop.
Okay.
Spoiler drop of this one is that in the final episode of Adventure Time, we do see the Krabbit get to be a dancer.
What?
That's all.
Okay. Does he show back up at all? Why is he in the final episode? Why is that a big deal?
The final episode, again, is this kind of in the spoiler drop. We do have a somewhat of a curtain call in the final episode. We get a lot of our characters that we know the lore of.
You're painting a good picture.
Our B level, our C level characters. We get a little bit of a curtain call scene. So it's cool that.
Hey, remember this guy? The crow rabbit from that one episode?
Yeah, you remember like the Krabbit.
I really want him to be like the squirrel. You know how squirrel is just always showing up just all over the place, like he's on the frisbee or he's talking to somebody in a tree. Like I would love it if Krabbit just becomes that for us.
It's not that frequent. I think the squirrel
gets I like Krabbit.
The squirrel gets maybe a little bit more frequency, but again, call it a D-list character.
Look, I also feel drawn like by the power of dance. Like I often feel like I should be dancing, and so I get it, man. Like I can just relate. So maybe he should be my lovely as well, but he's not. It's just my joke sexy character of the episode.
I love it. No, I don't even think it's a joke. I think he's lovely. I think he's sexy. I think he's a great. He's
I had to
backtrack
a little bit. I had to backtrack a little bit because it's very furry-esque, and like that's just not my thing. But the sexy form is when he's the crow, right? Like, no, I'm just kidding. Anyways, let's move on.
Let's move on. That was Han. You were making a point. We tangented because we talked about the Crabbit.
Well, here's the thing, though. The issue with my theory is that here's really my issue with my theory is that Maja is a new character. Maja is not someone we've seen in the past. I don't want necessarily Maja to play a big role in the future since Maja is a 5th season character. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's kind of out of the blue. Now, I will say, if you didn't know the reference when I say this the first time, we meet Maja, but we haven't technically heard of Maja. When we have the episode "Dream Within a Dream," I can't remember what's the name. Is it called "Dream in a Dream"? Dream of a Dream? Yeah. Where Ash, we meet Ash, and Ash is Marceline's ex, and Ash sells Hambo to a witch. This is that witch. Obviously, so the fact that she was like, I bought Hambo.
Right.
Legitimately, I have the invoices for it.
So
it was Ash that sold
canonically
Hambo
been present. We just didn't know the witch's name, right? It was season 3, episode 3, Memory of a Memory.
Memory of a Memory. That's what I was saying. Dream of a Dream.
No, you're good. And we see that. I had to find it in my notes, but we see that in the attic of this house, right? That's where there's a box of invoices and receipts. And Princess Bubblegum comes across it right after she walked past Shoko's painting. And did you see Shoko's eyes?
Shoko's eyes changed.
Glue
and
red.
And Shoko got teeth and they glue red. So like it's
terrifying.
It's ominous. Like you said, it is somewhat of a bit of a precursor, bad omen.
Right. Shoko's the creepy ghost from season 3, episode 12, The Creeps, in case y'all are having, for some reason, trouble remembering the scariest, creepiest, like my least favorite character of this entire show. And
Shoko, and it is a reoccurrence, or not a reoccurrence. We get a wrap up of that. What happens there? That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Huh. Well, dude, I mean, yeah, it's real interesting. That whole attic scene is pretty fun for me because we're getting to meet Maja. We're getting to learn about like what she's looking for and how it's going to play into her plan or whatever. The sentimental affection that is like within the 2 different items, whether it's Hambo, the teddy bear, or it's the T-shirt. And the one that she currently has, Hambo, is like, I guess, older affection. So it's like weaker, right? And then the newer one, the T-shirt, is what makes it stronger, is that it's full of like, here it is. She says it's fresher, more recently sentimental. So it's it has more recent value.
And yes. And for, I mean, Hambo's got the sentimental value, and I would say that that's strong because it is Simon gave Marcy Hambo, and that's
right. But why would she trade it?
Sentimental meaning,
which is the reason why it is.
Oh, you
fresher.
mean why PB would trade it?
No, why would Maja be willing to trade it away? The stronger, she wouldn't be. So she traded for the stronger item because it has fresher sentimental value to it.
You'll learn that. You'll learn why it has that sentimental value, and it obviously it plays into PB and Marceline. I can just tell you.
Of course, yeah. But even just like the sleeve made the potion like explode in the room when she cut the sleeve of the T-shirt off. And threw it in the pot.
And I think that, again, they're precursoring Marceline and PB's relationship together. That it was a really strong bond. It wasn't just kind of like any sort of like bullshit relationship. So that's like, I think that that's really cool, and that it's a different type of sentimental connection when you're connected with, Marceline connects with Hambo from Simon and comfort and childhood, I guess trauma maybe, versus a lover versus something that's fresh, something that is it's a whole different type. So that's we can. I don't know enough about witchcraft, but I'm sure that's childlike wonder in love versus lover in love is probably very different. So
yeah, I like that. That's some good thoughts for sure. I think there's it's a combination of things, but I think both of us are saying like reasons why the shirt itself would be stronger than the stolen teddy bear, or the stolen teddy bear. Very funny that the laws of the Candy Kingdom deem the legality of the purchase of a stolen good is still like a legal trade and has to be respected, as opposed to
it's PB. You know, she's getting a little bit of mine.
What, you think she's getting taxed from the black market? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think she's just getting off on being holier than thou. Of like, I respect my rules of my Candy Kingdom. Like, who else has respected the rules of her Candy Kingdom? Like, nobody. Yeah, but
she has to sacrifice. She's got to sacrifice something that has a lot of meaning to her, you know. And she only does it because she comes to the conclusion that Hambo is important, and it's important to Marceline, right? Like, there's
it's interesting because, like, yes, like this could be a thing if she just like if they tried to steal Hambo. Yeah, are you? But like that's where I think that was one of your most astute, theoretically speaking, is that this somehow swings around into the fall of the Candy Kingdom. Yes, I mean you're right. This swings it absolutely swings in that direction.
I gotta say I'm a little annoyed if that's true, but it's in a way it's probably not as dramatic as you're thinking about. It's more of what happens. We can leave it at that, Ned. I want the surprise.
You want the surprise?
Let me have the surprise.
I think I will say of like all the ones that you put together, this is one of the most that
you were just impressed by it.
I'm just very impressed that you made that connection. Thanks, so I want to give you some clout for that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Well, I have mixed feelings about that statement. I don't know how I'm going to feel when I see it, but it does make me very curious and look forward to the future of the season. But man, I just find it fascinating. We come from at the beginning of this episode. At some point, obviously, Princess Bubblegum has to make that realization because she's, I'm going to say, ragging on Hambo, saying that. What's it matter? It's just a freaking stuffed animal. Like Raggedy Princess can make you a new Hambo in like 3 seconds.
Dude,
she could be your new Hambo. She'd do it too. That girl's got like zero self-respect.
Savage. Oh my gosh. And at least she has a moment where she's like, please don't tell her that. She's like, that was mean. Please don't tell Raggedy Princess that. Like, it was so mean, dude.
She does Raggedy Princess so bad. Dirty. So raw. Like, that's rough. She's got like zero self-respect. I think it's got to be the funniest moment of this whole episode. I mean, so wrong. That's some Love Island drama right there.
You almost see Rebecca Sugar break her like voice for PB. Like, she's got like a Princess Bubblegum voice that she does. And then when she's kind of like mumbling to herself, she's like, don't tell her I said that. You almost can like hear Rebecca Sugar's
Is Rebecca Sugar Princess Bubblegum?
I am pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we ever looked up Princess Bubblegum's voice actor.
I'm fairly certain it's Rebecca Sugar, but maybe I guess I could be wrong.
Dude, I have no idea. I'm not trying to call you out. I literally just don't even know.
Yeah, well, we've been podcasting the show for 150 episodes almost, so
it's not Rebecca Sugar.
Oh, I don't know why I thought it was her for a second.
Yeah, I don't know.
Regardless, I think. Anyways, you see whoever voices Princess Bubblegum. Well, I'll double check. Every probably deep fan is like, oh, they're
Hayden Walsh. I think Hayden Walsh seems to be the main one. Okay, that is popping up on my Google search.
It throws me off because Rebecca Sugar's singing voice comes off as almost like Princess Bubblegum's voice. So it throws me up for a loop every time. So,
and she literally writes. No, I'm not trying to call you out. I just was like that feels like a thing that we should make sure we have right for an Adventure Time podcast.
And for a podcast. To let you guys know too, we do way less like let's dive deep into the writers. We thought we were going that direction at the beginning of the show. We didn't go that direction. We just want to talk about the deeper thoughts. So voice actors and where they're at now, and except for interviewing Olivia Olson, we don't know too much.
I love bragging about that too. Well, I really don't brag about the podcast much, but I do love talking about that. I'm like, y'all, you would never guess. But anyways. Let's get back to this episode. Dude. She just completely tears Raggedy Princess apart, and it's wonderful. Yeah. And it leads to my tops of the episode, which was the fist airplane that Marceline makes to threaten her.
Yeah.
But
It's like, I don't know what's coming.
Right. It's not necessarily because of the fist airplane, but it's because of how dorky the disengage was.
Disengage.
I thought that was hilarious. That was my tops of the episode. And there's some good tops. Like even that whole scene has the what is it? I can't think of the name of it. It's earlier in it, the Sleeping Gate Bramble that they had to go through, which is actually a reference to Devil's Snare plant from Harry Potter and this Philosopher's Stone.
Devil's Snare.
Yeah.
I can't think about that without thinking about Hermione's little like 10-year-old voice being like, it's a devil's snare.
Which this is like the first moment, and technically Princess Bubblegum does use a device in order to tell that it's the Sleeping Gate Bramble, but she is so damn observant in this episode. Like it's incredible. Yeah. Like
it's apparently
can tell. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's apparently like Sherlock, like the show Sherlock, where she can like see like things in the room and it's like
that's
bam,
what
bam,
it felt
bam.
like.
I was like I equated it to Iron Man. I think it's supposed to be a Sherlock reference.
Okay.
How like Sherlock can be like this thing in the corner, this thing in the corner, this thing in the corner, be like that's what happens, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's what it feels like. And she does it a couple different times. One time right after this, you see her do it when Crambit flies off and breaks some limbs and stuff. And she can tell where exactly Crambit was going. And then Marceline jumps off ahead. But then also when Princess Bubblegum first gets into the house, she can see exactly like where she's potentially hiding the stuffed animal, which is kind of crazy. I just kind of went with it. But yeah, so apparently Princess Bubblegum, incredibly observant.
Incredibly observant. I love that. I think it's great because it's I at least like them going down that route of like if we're going to make her this super genius and super scientist that like she can have this great skill of observation to kind of do this stuff. Now, the one thing that bugged me with Princess Bubblegum, and even as it pertains to being astute, is we just got done with some episodes where she's just like totally crapping on magic. In Wizards Only Fools, she was crapping on the magic and just like, this is all science. This is all. And yes, there is this part of this episode with the, I just forgot the devil's snare.
Yeah.
Where she's like, I know what this is. It's a scientific thing. It's a type of plant and all this stuff.
Right.
But how does she explain her house being in the portal and the portal?
Oh yeah.
Invisible thing. And you've got reverse gravity. How is she living in those moments where
her watch is going backwards all of a sudden? The Goo Goo Mama meter is flipping out. It's going babies. Yeah. I totally agree. There's a lot that she just claims is like witch's magic or something. Yeah.
And she's not being like, there's a scientific way to explain this all. And
exactly.
Like, I've got scientific tools to get rid of, this spell or all that kind of that's what kind of threw me for a loop, is that she has these moments where she kind of accepts the magic of and then she kind of just goes, oh no, I know everything because of science, And so yeah, cool Sherlock moments, but like, okay, Sherlock away that the fact that she's got a magic changing Crabbit and a sky house that's through a pond. Like explain that away.
And how do you explain the Sleeping Gate Bramble where she says it's take the path of least resistance, right? It's in your heart and your mind and you're relaxed, be passive. But how do you explain that? Like all she does is lay against it and then all of a sudden is calm and then magically goes through it. Like
that one makes more sense to me because it could be weird. So? Well, because everything in is weird. There's there's bubblegum people, so there might as well be plants that can relax.
Well, what about the magic of the chamomile tea? Huh? What about that magic?
What about that magic, man? Come on, explain away that magic.
Marceline gets relaxed just from drinking a cup of tea, and really she's just drinking the color red.
The red, come on, Ned. That's a good one. See, and again, I will say, I love that moment of the episode. It's not my tops, but I love that moment of the episode just for consistency of the characters and consistency of the storytelling. When she just like sips the chamomile tea, but all the red goes out of the cup. Like that's so good.
It is good. Yeah, that's a great reference to a much earlier Marceline episode. Ned, I'm curious, man. I mean, we've talked a lot about Maja already. What's up with her voice? The voice modulation is another reason that I feel like another reason why I felt like something big might be coming, because it's not just her. There's an added effect on the tone of her voice, which makes me wonder, is she fully in control of herself, right? Or is she consumed by evil that is like influencing her control? Like, I don't think she has the lich inside her by any means. I'm not saying that.
We're
but
not. We don't
weird.
get into Maja and lich. So if that was a theoretically speaking,
okay, then
we can shut that one down. I think it's just more of like an exaggerated.
She just has an evil tone. Like there's an added modulation to her voice, and I was really curious about that. Right.
No, I think it's just a fear thing. I would assume it's a witchcraft, like maybe being big and fearful kind of thing. I don't think it plays into a bigger thing of like her being possessed or anything. There's no separate entity. It's more of maybe she's like honing in power, and so she's got this like weird. Like, have you like Lord of the Rings when Galadriel gets possessed? And it's kind of possessive, but when she has that like double voice thing in Lord of the Rings, it's kind of just like harnessing power mentality.
Okay. Huh.
But
I wasn't sure about that. I just had
cool fact about Maja, especially when it comes to talking about her voice, is she's voiced by Jill Talley, who is Plankton's computer wife in SpongeBob. Which is cool because Tom Kenny is Ice King in Adventure Time. But in her sentimental room, apparently there is a totem which resembles Gork or similarly Plankton in her room. So they kind of gave Plankton a little moment in this episode because Jill Talley voices Maja. So it's a cool, I think it's a cool SpongeBob callback in this episode.
Yeah, I like that. I even thought that in the woods we saw, as we finally got past the bramble, like there's a bunch of totem Karens, as they call them.
They say Karens. Cairin it's not Karen computer wife Karen. It's Karen, which I have a whole thing. I researched what Karens were for this.
Right. So I looked it up too, and the only way I could rationalize it, and honestly, this is part of why I led into my theoretically speaking about this episode. There's a lot of reasons, obviously, as I keep saying.
There's a lot of things.
But the totem Karens are used as markers of a path or safety or a sacred place for a specific group of people. Mm-hmm. A Karen could also be used for a burial mound. So in my mind, I'm like, what is that alluding to? There's a ton of them in this one section of the woods, and then there's one in the attic as well. It just makes me think maybe there's a larger group at work, or there's something larger at play, and that's kind of where I started just like going wild with my thoughts. And thinking,
I tried to figure out if there was more behind it. I do think it's more. They said that there was like in more of a pagan sense that Karens were more of like a spiritual protection type mentality, that in more of a pagan sense of it, you can like put Karens on your property and it wards off evil spirits, and you can put a photo under a Karen and it protects that person and like blah, blah, blah. So I think it's a little bit more of a witchcraft thing and less of a dead bodies thing. So gotcha. I don't think we have to go into necessarily that there's like dead people out in her woods or anything like that.
Yeah, let's not do it then. But I was just curious.
But I like it. You went down the same path as I did. Like, is there really a sentiment behind it? And I think it's more of a protective. She obviously protects her woods with about 1,000 things of protection, and with I mean, there's like 15 different magical gates of different things, and her Krabbit's protecting the woods, and so there's stuff like that. And I think it's just another, like, if there was any sort of witchcraft or magic, anything she could put up that, and obviously too, like maybe one of those. I don't know if it was the Krabbit and the feather that fell that like triggered the Hambo, like the fake Hambo spell in the woods, where Hambo was like, "Oh, like, come on! I thought you was going to save me earlier." Like, I don't know if that was a Krabbit. I don't know if that was one of the totem Karen spells per se.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. Yeah.
I don't know. It makes me want to put a couple of Karens around my property. I need to put like one on the corner of each of mine.
It's the right time. The fall vibes could be cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any other deeper thoughts about this episode, or how you feeling about it?
No, I don't know if I have necessarily any deeper thoughts. My deeper feel for this episode was it was just a cool. We kind of hit on it early in the episode. I didn't think we'd hit on it this early, but the fact that we do just see this play on Princess Bubblegum and Marceline being these opposites that enjoy each other, that vibe off each other, that work well together, but by doing different things. And it's a little disappointing. I think Marceline is very much using Princess Bubblegum here. She obviously could not Marceline knew about Maja. She knows where Maja is. She knows that Maja has Hambo now. And she shows up at Princess Bubblegum's castle. She's like, I need you. Let's hang out. And she's like
so
manipulating her.
You think that was insincere? You think
I think it was absolutely insincere. I think it was insincere in the fact that like Marceline knew PB could get her through the part of the puzzle that she couldn't get through. And this is, it's such a common
I think you're going to
theme.
I think people are going to feel, I could be wrong, but I think people are going to feel differently about that. I feel like that's a controversial opinion, Ned.
I think so too. I could see it going either way, that she wants her to, but Marceline
keep going. Yeah.
Marceline's hesitant to tell her that this is a adventure to go get Hambo back. If she trusted Princess Bubblegum, because they've obviously broken off a lot of the trust mentality. They obviously have separated themselves so far away from each other that in order to get Princess Bubblegum to help her at least get through the devil. I'm just going to keep calling it the Devil's Snare because I'm not going to remember the Adventure Time name. That once they get through that, Marceline is almost heads down, ignoring Princess Bubblegum for the rest of the episode. She tries to go after Hambo. She's like, let go of me. She flies off in the woods, forgets Princess Bubblegum's in the background. She fights the Crabbit and just she forgets about Princess Bubblegum until Princess Bubblegum comes to her rescue at the end and is just like, bro, I've got Hambo. So I do think that this is Marceline being very, very selfish and kind of being like, the only person that can help me is my ex. And the only way to appeal to my ex is to be like, hey, I want to hang out. And she goes, I can only say that this is really, 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 really important to me. And so she kind of appeals to that weird, you would never like want the worst for your ex. Like you would never just be like, go die, So I kind of don't like Marceline in this episode that she uses Princess Bubblegum to get in and then just kind of abandons her, man. That's my mentality of it all.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel differently about this. In my opinion, it was sincere. I think she's just embarrassed. I think just like in the episode where we find out about the rot t-shirt that Princess Bubblegum's been holding on all this time, she didn't want to reveal that that's what that was and that it had a sentimental connection with Marceline. Like she's embarrassed to have that shirt still and to have held onto it and also to be using it all the time as her nightgown. Like I think Marceline is equally as embarrassed to be a 1,000-year-old vampire who carries around a stuffed animal with her that she got.
She doesn't want to tell
years ago.
She doesn't think anybody else would like.
Because she's the cool
understand
character,
that
right?
She's like rescuing her teddy bear,
right?
And that Princess Bubblegum would be the only one that kind of like knew that thing about her.
I just think, I just think regardless of who was around in the room when she asked or told Princess Bubblegum about it, I think she would have been pretty sly about it regardless, just because she's embarrassed by it. And I don't know. I think there's something, that was my explanation. I really didn't dive too much deeper into it in my mind. So that's interesting. What you're saying is almost, it's like a negative perspective of like, how Marceline's character is developing in this episode.
Yeah. Whereas, after you share that though, it makes sense though. It makes sense that like, she couldn't let anybody else know that she was on a teddy bear rescue mission. And
right.
Because if there was anybody that wasn't going to judge her it was going to be somebody
Which
that
she
understood.
did judge her. She had to trick her to get into the woods because Princess Bubblegum has that whole thing about Raggedy Princess. She's like, this is so dumb. I wouldn't have come. And she's like, I know you wouldn't have come, but I needed you because I needed to get this thing back.
But PB kind of gets it though, because she knows
gets it eventually.
Marceline's history.
She didn't get it at first.
Yeah, I it's a sentiment thing. So once she realizes that Marceline holds the sentiment for Hambo,
right,
and then that Maja was like, there's a lot of power in this sentiment, and that's where she realizes like she still holds the T-shirt, which has the sentiment.
So that's what I was going to talk about with letting go, and I think that's the character development that I wanted to see that we saw through Princess Bubblegum, is that she does realize that they're one and the same, Hambo and the Rot T-shirt, right? And so she does make the selfless decision to give Maja the T-shirt to get Hambo back, and doesn't. It's kind of her. If you are One Piece fans out there,
oh, it's One Piece again.
It's her nothing happened moment, which every character in Adventure Time, in One Piece gets a nothing happened moment. I did this incredibly badass thing, but I'm not going to tell anybody about it.
Explain to me as a non-One Piece fan what a nothing happens moment is.
That's what it is. I just had this awesome moment that, like, if you had seen it, like, I could be bragging about it. Like, a great example is essentially, there's this bad guy who takes, this is a spoiler, so if you don't want One Piece spoilers, jump ahead 30 seconds. He takes all of the pain that Luffy had just suffered, the main character had just suffered, was put into a ball, essentially. And in order to keep Luffy alive, because he's suffering so bad and so beat up, Zoro, the swordsman, the right-hand man of Luffy, takes in all of the pain, all of the suffering that Luffy's been through, multiplied, essentially. And he withstands it at the end of the episode or the next episode or whatever. You see him, blood going down his face, his eyes are dead. And another character comes up to him and asks him, like, what happened to you? And Zoro goes, nothing happened. And then they move on and they don't address it. So all the characters in One Piece kind of get little bits of nothing happened moments.
Yeah. Where it's like you did endure a lot of pain, but like nothing really happened.
Right. Like that's not what's important. What's important is that, like, you're safe. Luffy's alive. He's saved. Let's move on.
Yeah. That needs some disclaimer, because we're all like, listening to the show being Adventure Time fans. Not everybody One Piece.
Everybody's a One Piece fan, Ned. You're just not on the bandwagon.
Just not on the bandwagon. I know.
But anyways, I do think that she comes to this conclusion that the decision is Marceline's happiness is what matters most, as opposed to like keeping this object that she has. And so I think the conclusion is simple. Like, this physical object does hold value to me, but it's less about the object itself. It's about what the object represents. And she's very fortunate that, like, she's in a place where she's still going to get time with Marceline, to bring it back.
Yeah.
To bring it back to the beginning of this episode, when we're talking about me being sentimental, like, you know, I do have the painting of my dad. My dad is still here and stuff. And, like, I'll get a whole bunch more time with him, and I'm so grateful for that. My grandfather has passed away, right? And, like, that's a sentimental object. But I think if I lost the green pullover tomorrow or something like that, like, I'm not going to be terribly upset by it. Yeah, it's sentimental. I love it. I'm going to protect it while I can. But, like, it's an object. It's what it represents. It's that it was his, or I think it was his. It was with his stuff. I don't know, you know. But, like, I never saw him wear it, which is kind of silly, but like, it's what it represents, right? So, like, also have those memories of him, and, like, I like it because it reminds me of him, but other things will as well. And Princess Bubblegum and Marceline are in a wonderful situation where, like, they have each other still to move forward, to grow together, to maybe come back and be friends, and then, you know, maybe developing them more with Fiona and Cake. I mean, who knows? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Well, that's at the end of the development, but yeah.
Right.
So the rest of the show.
It's exciting that, like, she has that growth and she goes, there's more to it. Yeah. I can move past this object, and, like, Marceline will appreciate it.
I mean, whether it's Marceline, whether it's Finn and Jake, whether it's her people, Princess Bubblegum, we really like those redeeming moments where she kind of separates herself from selfishness, which, after being an 1,000-year-old person, you think that, that does probably constitute, I know better than everyone else. I know everything, So I think that's why Marceline's one of her, that's why she's one of her greatest counterparts. And it's somebody who's gone through the exact same development for the exact same amount of time. And it's cool. It's cool to watch this moment to see where Princess Bubblegum puts herself kind of in the background a little bit for the sake of someone else. And doesn't necessarily even have, we always talk about Princess Bubblegum's ulterior motives. And that's the kind of cool part of this episode is that she doesn't have an ulterior motive. She just is truly trying to help a friend, that we don't have a theoretically speaking on why she would have given up the t-shirt. We know why.
Which brings me to my other theoretically speaking. No.
Second theoretically speaking.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Oh, no. Joking. Drop the soundbite for nothing.
Dude, you just wasted a soundbite. We only have like 100 of those.
I know. We got to pay a nickel for every time we hit a soundbite,
Right. And who we're paying it to? Me, because that's I said that thing. No, I'm just kidding.
But this is exciting for me. I love that this has been one of your favorite season 5 episodes. This is really cool to see that. And again, I know you love those canon episodes. This is cool canon for later, but the fact that you were like, yeah, we've not had Maja before. We're
but again, it's not the canon, even though it's just the development. I just love the character development, I love the movement. I love to dive a little deeper into their relationship, that sort of stuff.
Now I think this is the turning point of the show. Mid-season 5, turning point of the show, because you take everybody, if you weren't a fan before this is where every episode just everything. I mean, I'm talking every even stupid episode after this plays into a part of this deeper development of a character, or this deeper, the jokes are all about, they wouldn't be funny if you didn't know the characters. And so they're really playing into that now. And so this has this has a lot of jokes, but this whole episode is this would be a silly, stupid episode if you didn't know this weird Princess Bubblegum is a control freak and she loves science, and Marceline drinks red and Marceline is irrational and she's got all these pains and scars from her past. All of that comes into play in this episode, but it's all subtext, and that's why it's so great.
That's good, man. Well, I'll prepare myself. I'll buckle in, and hopefully my little boy heart can withstand what's coming for us.
And I promise maybe one of these episodes I'll stop harping on the end of season 5, and I know I've said it way too much. I'll stop
get
after
off.
This one.
What do you get off
that high horse?
What do you get off? What's your lesson for this episode, bud?
I got 2 lessons here. You got to take the path of least resistance. Take a deep breath and relax.
Nice.
I love that.
I love that. That's a really good one. It's
not great advice for everything, but I think it's a great advice for a lot of things. But man, this one goes hand in hand. My second lesson is you got to work together as partners in crime. You can't use people. And I kind of got this sense that Marceline was just kind of using PB. And it's what we learned in Dungeon in season 1, that Finn and Jake have to work that you bring both of your talents to the table and you can do anything. And if Princess Bubblegum had not had that one smart moment at the end, they would not have won this mission. That you got to take both of those things to the table. You got to you can't use people. You got to be partners in crime.
Well, though I disagree a little bit with your take from this episode, I do think that's a great lesson. And I like both of those a lot.
You and I have both great strengths and bring different things to the table. And when we have a night on the town, we're not going to take
one of us is good looking, one of us
is good looking. One of us is named Ned. So
one of us is super wealthy. I'm just making stuff up.
I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
Russell
one of us got 12. All the babes in college. The other one's name is Russell, and that's cool. I wear glasses, you don't. I got that on you, which is cool. But anyways, my lesson from this episode is wear your heart on your sleeve, unless your shirt don't got sleeves, in which case take your shirt off and trade it for a teddy bear. I think that's a pretty dang good lesson right there is, I'm going to take that one to heart, and maybe we'll see. I mean, usually my shirts have sleeves, so I can wear my heart on it. But if I'm ever wearing a tank top for some reason, which I only own one of those, I'll take it off and I'll trade it for a teddy bear. But y'all, thank you so much for joining us and hanging out with us for a daggum hour. I had a good time. This is a good episode. And if you want more of this, you want more of us, you want to hang out for a bit longer, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/neverendingadventurepodcast. We've got over 20 episodes of the Patreon's podcast. And also we're doing this Friday, our second half of Over Their Garden Walls watch party. Yeah. This episode is going to come out after.
It'll be well after we do the watch party.
But that's okay.
We do things like that.
And it's super fun. And I'm pumped for it. I can't wait to finish it. We're like creeping into like the best part of October spooky season. I'm sure we're deep into November or December by the time this episode actually airs. But
hopefully just November.
Yeah, we're deep into. I'm already married by the time this episode airs. Instagram, Never Ending Adventure Podcast, TikTok, Never Ending Adventure Cast, Twitter, NEA_podcast. Email us your thoughts, your opinions. Get on the Traveler's Log. Let's do a Traveler's Law next week because I forgot about it.
Okay,
yeah. And yeah, man, my rec for this week is an anti-rec. It is
anti-rec.
Here's a question for you, Ned. Can popcorn be too buttery?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Orville Redenbacher's Ultimate Butter. It's like the fall off after a plateau. Like we're yielding negative correlation with the butter to goodness ratio right now. And I don't know how I got there. I was walking to Kroger and I'm like, I do love the buttery pieces. Like I'm digging for those buttery pieces. I don't know.
Popcorn, they're all buttery. I love salty popcorn. It can be too buttery because I think if you get the fresh butter on the top of the popcorn of the movies, the first layer is the worst layer. The second layer is the ideal layer. But the butter doesn't even drip down to the bottom. So you only get two layers of butter anyway.
There's something about movie theater, like actual movie theater popcorn that I do love. Belcourt at Nashville. The popcorn there.
Because it's salty. Best popcorn in the world. The basement at Boar's Head Bar in Athens has best salty popcorn.
Wow, that you just said that.
Oh, it is so good. I don't know what it is about it, man. It's disgustingly good.
Well, I'm sure that was a real niche one. There's one person I know of that listens to the podcast that lives in Atlanta.
That would know what maybe Boar's Head Bar in Athens, the basement at the bar, sketchy little dark, no window basement bar has the best popcorn I've ever had because it's salty. It's not buttery. But yes, absolutely. Your anti-rec. I agree. You can have popcorn that's too buttery for sure.
What's your rec, Ned?
My rec this week is a classic. It may have been one from years past at this point with the podcast, Kingdom Hearts 2. I am not even playing it right now.
Are you back
but
into
I've somehow ended up on Kingdom Hearts TikTok because maybe I was Googling
that checks out
Sora Halloween costume Kingdom Hearts stuff. But I'm back on Kingdom Hearts TikTok and I'm just like, man, I think one of the most flawless childhood wonderful games is Kingdom Hearts 2, and it's the soundtrack. I've been putting it on Spotify this week. I've been listening to the soundtrack of Kingdom Hearts 2 and all the levels, and it's a flawless game, dude. It's amazing.
Wow. Well, I'm on Wiener Dog TikTok, so I get
you're on Wiener Dog TikTok.
Just dachshunds. Every other scroll is a freaking dachshund being adorable.
You guys gonna get another dog?
Dude, it won't be with Bankston, that's for sure.
Man, I'll tell you, weenie dogs are cute, but they are rascals.
I don't know if I could handle it. I really don't know if I have the personality for it. But they're so adorable. I think they're like the cutest puppy dog. But anyways, y'all, thank you so much. We'll be back another Tuesday.
Another Tuesday.
Have a wonderful week, and go check out this episode. It's a goodie.
All right. Love that you guys.
Party forever.